Marcus Jackson stood over Officer Whitaker FBI badge gleaming in the summer sun. "You picked the wrong family to harass today." The officer who had thrown his son to the ground minutes ago now trembled. The barbecue smoke still hung in the air as neighbors recorded everything. Before we dive into this shocking story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to show your support for families standing up against injustice. What would you do if you witnessed police harassment in your neighborhood park? Let's explore how a perfect Sunday barbecue turned into a national reckoning. The morning sun cast a golden glow across Lakeside Park as Marcus Jackson meticulously arranged charcoal in his premium grill. As a 15-year veteran FBI agent specializing in civil rights violations, he rarely had time for family gatherings like this. Today was special. The Jackson family had been planning this Sunday barbecue for weeks, a rare opportunity when their busy schedules aligned. Marcus had reserved the lakeside gazebo in Pinewood, one of Atlanta's most affluent suburbs, well in advance. His wife Tiana, a prominent pediatric surgeon at Atlanta Memorial, arranged her demanding schedule to ensure she would be present. Their daughter Amara, 16, and already recognized as a science prodigy with multiple scholarship offers, had postponed her research project. Even their son, Jamal, 12, had skipped his usual basketball practice, bringing his portable speaker to provide the soundtrack for their day. The family worked together with practiced efficiency, unloading their SUV with containers of homemade potato salad, marinated chicken fresh corn, and Tiana's famous peach cobbler. Marcus noticed his wife's slight hesitation as they approached the gazebo, her eyes scanning the predominantly white families scattered throughout the park. "You okay?" he asked quietly, balancing a cooler against his hip. Tiana nodded, her expression carefully neutral. "Just noticed we're the only black family here again." She arranged napkins on the picnic table with precise movements. "You know how it can get." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We have every right to be here. I reserved this spot weeks ago." He pulled out the confirmation email on his phone, a habit developed from previous experiences where their reservations had mysteriously disappeared from systems. Jamal connected his speaker, keeping the volume modest as Sam Cooke's smooth voice provided a gentle backdrop to their setup. Marcus noticed several white families glancing their way, some with curious expressions, others with thinly veiled discomfort. He chose to focus instead on lighting the charcoal, watching with satisfaction as the coals began to glow. As he prepared the grill, Marcus found himself discussing his current case with Tiana. "The investigation is gaining traction," he said quietly, careful to keep his voice low. "We've documented a pattern of civil rights violations in Westridge Precinct. Officers targeting black motorists, excessive force during routine stops, evidence tampering." Tiana raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like every precinct." Her tone was light, but her eyes serious. "This one's different." Marcus replied. "We have evidence linking the pattern to departmental policy, not just individual officers. Could be groundbreaking." Amara approached, overhearing the conversation. "Is that why you've been working weekends?" she asked, arranging condiments on the table, her analytical mind already processing the implications. "Justice doesn't take weekends off," Marcus smiled, ruffling her braids. "But today is family day, no shop talk." Jamal rushed over, basketball tucked under his arm. "Dad, can we shoot some hoops after we eat?" his excitement palpable. Marcus nodded, grateful for his son's uncomplicated enthusiasm. "You bet, champ. I might even let you win this time." Jamal's laughter was interrupted by a commotion nearby. A white couple had approached a park attendant, gesturing animatedly toward the Jackson family. Marcus couldn't hear their words, but their body language was clear enough. The park manager, a thin man with a perpetual frown, reluctantly made his way to their gazebo. "Excuse me," he began, not quite meeting Marcus's eyes. "We've had a complaint about loud music." Marcus glanced at their speaker, playing jazz at barely audible levels. "Really?" he asked, his tone professional but firm. The manager shifted uncomfortably. "I can see it's not an issue. I'll let them know." He hesitated. "Enjoy your day." As the manager walked away, Tiana exchanged a knowing look with Marcus. It wasn't their first encounter with such complaints, nor would it be their last. They continued preparing their meal, determined not to let the incident spoil their day. The chicken sizzled on the grill, filling the air with mouth-watering aromas. Amara set the table while Jamal collected firewood for the fire pit they planned to use later for s'mores. The perfect family day was unfolding exactly as planned. Marcus was just transferring the first batch of perfectly grilled chicken to a serving platter when he noticed 2 police cruisers pulling into the parking lot. His trained eye observed details automatically. Pinewood Police Department markings cruisers 347 and 352. The officers emerged from their vehicles with deliberate movements, scanning the park, before their gaze settled on the Jackson family. Officers Reed Wilson and Gregory Blake. Marcus recognized the aggressive posture immediately, the way their hands hovered near their weapons, the purposeful stride as they approached. Years of FBI training kicked in as he assessed the situation, calculating risks and responses. He could feel Tiana's eyes on him, questioning. "Everything okay?" she asked, following his gaze to the approaching officers. Marcus kept his expression neutral for his family's sake. "Probably nothing," he said, though instinct told him otherwise. "Let's just continue with our lunch." He positioned himself casually between the approaching officers and his children, turning the chicken on the grill with practiced ease, while never losing awareness of the officers' movements. The perfect Sunday was about to take an unexpected turn. The officers approached with purpose boots, crunching on the gravel path leading to the Jackson family's gazebo. Marcus continued tending to the grill, maintaining an appearance of casual normalcy while remaining acutely aware of every detail. Officer Reed Wilson, a stocky man with close-cropped hair and mirrored sunglasses, took the lead. His partner, Officer Gregory Blake, flanked him slightly to the right hand resting near his holster. "Afternoon," Wilson said, his tone clipped and authoritative. "Need to see some identification from everyone here." No introduction, no explanation. Marcus turned slowly from the grill spatula still in hand. "Good afternoon, officers," he responded, his voice measured and professional. "May I ask what this is about?" Wilson's expression hardened. "We've received multiple complaints about this gathering. I need to see ID now." Marcus mentally cataloged the falsehood. There had been only one complaint already addressed by the park manager. "With all due respect, officer, I'd like to know the nature of these complaints. We're simply having a family barbecue in a space we reserved." Tiana had subtly removed her phone from her purse, positioning it to record the interaction while appearing to check messages. Years of being married to an FBI agent had taught her the importance of documentation. Their children watched with growing tension, Jamal edging closer to his mother, while Amara remained perfectly still, observing everything with calculated precision. Officer Blake stepped forward, his posture aggressive. "The nature of the complaint isn't your concern. You need to vacate these premises immediately." Marcus kept his expression neutral despite the escalating situation. "I have confirmation of our reservation right here," he said, reaching slowly for his phone. "We've paid for this space until 6 this evening." He noticed several park visitors slowing their activities to observe the confrontation. Some had begun recording discreetly. Blake scoffed, scanning the spread of food with exaggerated distaste. "Reservation or not, we've had noise complaints and reports of disorderly conduct." Another falsehood. The Jackson family had been model park users, their music barely audible beyond their immediate area. Marcus felt his professional demeanor being tested, but maintained his composure. His years investigating civil rights violations had prepared him for this moment, though he'd never expected to experience it firsthand with his family present. "Officer Wilson, Officer Blake," he said, reading their name tags deliberately. "We've broken no laws. Our music is at an appropriate volume. We have valid reservations for this space, and we're simply enjoying a family meal." His knowledge of their names seemed to unsettle the officers momentarily. Wilson removed his sunglasses, eyes narrowing. "You seem to know an awful lot about what's legal and what's not," he said, tone increasingly hostile. "Maybe you need a lesson in respecting authority." His fingers tapped rhythmically against his handcuffs. The implied threat hung in the air. Marcus noticed Jamal's expression shift from confusion to fear. The 12-year-old had heard enough stories, seen enough news reports to understand the potential danger. Amara had silently taken out her phone, sending rapid text messages. Marcus recognized she was contacting Brandon Hayes, a family friend and state attorney. Blake took another step forward, deliberately knocking into the table and causing drinks to spill. "Oops, he said with artificial regret. "Looks like you're making a mess here." He surveyed the area with exaggerated concern. "You know, some people just don't belong in certain neighborhoods. This is a family park." The racial coding was obvious, intended to provoke. Marcus remained steady, aware that any display of anger would only escalate the situation. He had not yet revealed his FBI credentials, making a strategic decision to document the officer's unfiltered behavior. If this was happening to him, a federal agent, it was certainly happening to other black families without his training or resources. Tiana had moved closer to the children, her doctor's composure intact despite the tension. She leaned down to whisper instructions to Jamal and Amara, preparing them for various scenarios. Marcus could read her lips. "Stay calm. No sudden movements. Keep your hands visible if they separate us. Call Brandon immediately." Lessons no parent should have to teach, yet essential for black families in America. The families at nearby picnic tables had grown silent, watching the confrontation unfold. A few white couples had hurriedly packed their belongings and left, avoiding involvement. Others remained, phones raised, documenting the escalating situation. An older white woman had approached the perimeter, her expression concerned, but her husband pulled her back, shaking his head. Marcus recognized the pattern of bystander behavior he'd studied professionally for years. "Officer," Marcus said, maintaining eye contact with Wilson. "I'm going to reach for our reservation confirmation. I'm making no threatening movements." He narrated his actions deliberately, aware that perceived threats could be manufactured after the fact. Wilson sneered. "You think a piece of paper gives you the right to be disruptive? We've had complaints about your type before." The mask was slipping further, the pretense of professional policing eroding with each exchange. "My type," Marcus echoed, allowing the officer to incriminate himself further. "Black families enjoying a Sunday in the park." Blake stepped closer to Tiana and the children. "The lady recording this interaction needs to stop immediately. It's illegal to record police officers." Another falsehood. Georgia law clearly permitted recording of police officers performing their duties in public spaces. Marcus watched his wife's expression remain neutral, though her hand holding the phone trembled slightly. "Actually, officer," Amara spoke up, her voice steady despite her youth. "The Supreme Court has upheld citizens' First Amendment right to record police officers performing their duties in public spaces. Glick v. Cuniff established this precedent." Blake's face darkened at being corrected by a 16-year-old black girl. "You need to watch your mouth, young lady," he growled, taking a menacing step toward her. Marcus shifted position, placing himself between the officer and his daughter. "My daughter is simply stating legal fact, officer. Now, I'd like to speak with your supervisor about the nature of these unspecified complaints." The confrontation had reached an impasse, the tension palpable in the summer air. Marcus could see the officers calculating their next move, unwilling to back down, yet aware of the growing number of witnesses. Wilson reached for his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 347. We need additional units at Lakeside Park. We have uncooperative subjects refusing lawful commands. Another fabrication added to the growing list. The Jacksons had cooperated fully while asserting their legal rights. As the call went out, Marcus knew the situation was about to escalate dramatically. He caught Tiana's eye, a silent communication passing between them. They had both witnessed how quickly these situations could deteriorate, how tragic the outcomes could be. For now, he would continue documenting the officer's misconduct, but he was prepared to reveal his credentials if the safety of his family became compromised. The unwelcome interruption to their perfect Sunday was transforming into something far more dangerous and more consequential than a simple case of harassment. The crackle of police radio cut through the tension as Wilson's call for backup received an immediate response. "Copy that, 347. Units en route to your location." Marcus calculated they had perhaps 5 minutes before the situation complicated further. He needed to de-escalate quickly while continuing to document the officer's misconduct. The wail of approaching sirens confirmed his timeline had been optimistic. 2 additional police vehicles pulled into the parking area, lights flashing, though no emergency existed. 4 officers for a family barbecue. The disproportionate response would have been almost comical if it weren't so potentially dangerous. Officer Patricia Novak emerged from one vehicle, her expression professionally neutral, though her eyes betrayed uncertainty. From the second stepped Sergeant Thomas Grant, his chest puffed with authority, jaw set in predetermined judgment. Grant approached with the confidence of someone who had already decided the facts before witnessing the situation. "What seems to be the problem here?" He directed his question exclusively to Wilson and Blake, immediately establishing allegiance. Wilson gestured toward the Jackson family. Subjects were causing a disturbance. When asked for identification, they became confrontational and refused lawful commands. Marcus noticed Novak's slight frown at this characterization, but she remained silent. "We're simply having a family barbecue in a space we reserved," Marcus explained calmly. "We've broken no laws and were never told what specific disturbance we allegedly caused." Grant turned to Marcus, eyes cold. "When an officer gives you an order, you comply first and ask questions later. That's how it works." His tone left no room for constitutional rights or legal procedure. "With respect, Sergeant," Marcus continued, "officers need reasonable suspicion of criminal activity before demanding identification in the state of Georgia. We've committed no crime." His encyclopedic knowledge of law enforcement procedures was becoming increasingly difficult to disguise. Grant's expression darkened. "You a lawyer or something?" The question carried accusation rather than inquiry. "Just an American citizen familiar with my rights," Marcus replied evenly. Jamal, startled by Grant's sudden movement toward his father, dropped his soda can. The clatter against the concrete seemed to echo across the now silent park. In an instant, Grant spun toward the 12-year-old, interpreting the accident as threatening behavior. "Don't move!" he barked, lunging toward Jamal and grabbing his arm roughly. The boy froze in terror as the grown man twisted his arm behind his back. "He dropped a soda can," Tiana interjected, her doctor's composure cracking at the sight of her child being manhandled. "He's 12 years old." Marcus stepped forward, every fiber of his being screaming to protect his son. "Take your hands off my child," he demanded, barely restraining himself from revealing his credentials. Years of FBI training were being tested against his most primal instinct as a father. Grant released Jamal with a shove. "Keep your kid under control." The boy stumbled back toward his mother, eyes wide with shock and fear. Tiana wrapped a protective arm around him while maintaining her recording. "I'm Dr. Tiana Jackson," she stated, emphasizing her title. "There is absolutely no justification for manhandling a child. I want all of your badge numbers immediately." Officer Blake scoffed. "Sure, you're a doctor, and I'm the Surgeon General." The dismissal was automatic. The disbelief in a black woman's professional credentials painfully familiar. The park had become a spectacle, with visitors gathering at a distance to witness the confrontation. A white woman in running clothes had approached cautiously. "Is everything okay here? These people were just having a barbecue when I passed earlier." Officer Wilson turned on her immediately. "Ma'am, return to your activities. This is police business." A white man in his 50s joined her. "Seems like a lot of officers for a family cookout. What exactly did they do?" Sergeant Grant's patience visibly thinned. "Everyone needs to disperse immediately or face arrest for interfering with police duties." The threat scattered some onlookers, but others remained at a distance, phones recording. Marcus noted Wilson surreptitiously reaching to his chest, turning off his body camera with a subtle movement. Blake followed suit. The procedural violation was blatant, adding to the catalog of misconduct Marcus was mentally documenting. Amara stood perfectly still, her phone positioned to capture everything while appearing to text. Her live stream had already connected to her social media accounts, creating a permanent record beyond the officer's control. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. Brandon Hayes, no doubt responding to Amara's messages. He reached slowly to answer. "Sir, put the phone down immediately," Blake demanded, hand moving to his weapon. "I'm receiving a call from my attorney," Marcus stated calmly, knowing this would complicate their narrative. "Are you preventing me from speaking with legal counsel?" The question was deliberate, forcing the officers to either back down or commit another documented violation. Officer Novak shifted uncomfortably clearly, recognizing the legal quicksand her colleagues were entering. She made brief eye contact with Marcus, something like recognition flickering across her features. Perhaps she had seen him at the federal building or recognized him from an interagency briefing. He maintained a neutral expression, not yet ready to reveal his identity. "Look," Marcus continued, deliberately invoking specific language. "You've detained us without reasonable suspicion under Terry v. Ohio, refused to articulate any specific criminal activity, attempted to prevent legal recording under Glick v. Cuniff, and are now attempting to deny access to counsel. These actions constitute violations of the Fourth and First Amendments." The precision of his legal knowledge clearly unsettled the officers. They hadn't expected this level of expertise from someone they had profiled as an easy target. The officers huddled briefly, speaking in hushed tones. Marcus could read their body language, the growing frustration, the unwillingness to back down despite the legal quagmire they were creating for themselves. Pride and prejudice were powerful motivators, often overwhelming training and procedure. Have you ever witnessed racial profiling firsthand? Comment. Number 1. If you believe police should always have to explain their reason for stopping citizens, or number 2, if you think officers should have more authority without explanation. Hit that like button if you're stunned by how quickly this barbecue turned into a dangerous confrontation. Can you believe what happened next? Subscribe to find out how Marcus handles these escalating threats to his family's safety. Would you have revealed your FBI status earlier or continued gathering evidence like Marcus? The tension is about to reach breaking point as the officers make a critical mistake. The officers' huddle broke with a renewed sense of purpose, their strategy shifting from intimidation to action. Officer Wilson approached Amara with determined strides, his target now the 16-year-old girl whose phone continued to record the encounter. "Young lady, you're interfering with a police investigation by recording without consent. Hand over the phone now." His hand extended expectantly, the absurdity of his legal fiction hanging in the air. Marcus had been carefully measuring his responses strategically, documenting the officer's misconduct while protecting his family. But this direct approach toward his daughter crossed a line he could not tolerate. He stepped between Wilson and Amara, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "Officer Wilson, my daughter is exercising her constitutionally protected right to record public officials performing their duties. She will not be surrendering her property." The deliberate use of Wilson's name without introduction again created a moment of uncertainty among the officers. Blake's response was immediate and alarming. The metallic click of his taser being unholstered cut through the tension, the weapon now pointed directly at Marcus. "Step back and put your hands where I can see them," Blake commanded, his voice pitched higher with adrenaline. "This is your final warning." The situation had escalated from harassment to imminent danger in seconds. Nearby witnesses gasped, some backing away, while others moved closer, unwilling to abandon the family to potential violence. Tiana's professional composure finally cracked as she saw a weapon pointed at her husband. "There are children present," she shouted, her doctor's authority ringing across the park. "This is completely unnecessary and dangerous." Her phone remained steady, capturing every moment of the escalation. "Ma'am, everyone needs to comply immediately or face arrest," Sergeant Grant announced, reaching for his radio. "Dispatch requesting additional units for resisting arrest at Lakeside Park." The code call went out despite no lawful arrest being in progress. No Miranda rights read, no specific charges articulated. Within minutes, the sound of more approaching sirens filled the air. 6 police vehicles for a family barbecue. The absurd overreaction would have been laughable if not for the very real danger it presented. Jamal, already traumatized by his earlier rough handling, began to hyperventilate. The 12-year-old's basketball fell from his trembling hands as he struggled to breathe, the classic symptoms of a panic attack manifesting in rapid succession. Tiana recognized the signs immediately and moved toward her son, medical training overriding everything else. "My son is having a panic attack," she stated, her voice clear and authoritative. "I need to help him now." Blake shifted his taser slightly in her direction. "Stay where you are." The command was irrational, dangerous, preventing a mother and doctor from attending to a child in medical distress. Marcus found himself at the most critical decision point of the encounter. He had intended to document the full extent of the officer's misconduct, gathering evidence for the investigation he knew would follow. But with weapons drawn and his son in distress, the calculation had changed. His family's immediate safety now outweighed all other considerations. A news van pulled into the park entrance, the distinctive logo of Channel 7 visible on its side. Amara's live stream had apparently caught the attention of local media, the story now expanding beyond the confines of the park. Marcus noted this development with grim satisfaction, even as he prepared to reveal his identity. Officer Novak had pulled Sergeant Grant aside, speaking rapidly in hushed tones. Her expression conveyed growing concern about the direction of the confrontation. Grant shrugged her off dismissively, his commitment to the escalation path unwavering. Officer Wilson turned to his partner, clearly believing himself out of earshot of the family. "These people always think they know their rights. Typical entitled The slur left his lips just loud enough for Marcus to hear the mask of professionalism now completely abandoned. The racial animus underlying the entire confrontation stood naked and undeniable. Marcus made his decision. The situation had become too volatile, the weapons too real, the danger to his family too immediate. He would reveal his credentials and end this farce before someone got hurt. He began to reach slowly toward his back pocket where his wallet and FBI badge were stored. "I'm going to reach for my identification," he announced clearly, movements deliberate and telegraphed. Blake misinterpreted the movement as a threat. "He's reaching!" he shouted, advancing aggressively. With a sharp shove, he pushed Marcus backward. Marcus stumbled against the hot grill behind him, his right hand coming down on the heated metal surface. Searing pain shot through his palm as the smell of burning flesh joined the barbecue smoke in the air. He pulled back with a sharp intake of breath, the burn already blistering across his hand. Tiana's cry of outrage joined Amara's gasp of shock. Even Jamal, in the midst of his panic attack, registered the deliberate harm inflicted on his father. The moment crystallized the reality they faced. These officers saw their humanity as conditional, their dignity as optional, their safety as irrelevant. The assembled crowd reacted with audible shock, the unnecessary escalation now undeniable to even the most skeptical observer. In the distance, Brandon Hayes could be seen attempting to enter the park, his state attorney credentials visible in his hand. Two officers intercepted him at the perimeter, preventing his approach despite his official position. The final barrier to protection had been removed. Marcus straightened to his full height, hand throbbing with pain, but resolve strengthened by the assault. The point of no return had been reached. What had begun as documentation would now become accountability. With his uninjured hand, he reached again for his back pocket, his movements deliberate despite the pain. "My name is Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Jackson, Federal Bureau of Investigation Civil Rights Division," he stated, voice carrying across the suddenly silent park. "And every one of you officers is now the subject of a federal investigation." The declaration hung in the air like thunder following lightning, the park falling into complete silence, save for the gentle lapping of lake water against the shore. For several seconds, nobody moved. Officer Wilson's face contorted in disbelief, then alarm. "Yeah, right," he scoffed, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "And I'm the Director of Homeland Security." Despite his bravado, his hand had unconsciously moved away from his weapon. Marcus continued his careful movement, extracting his wallet with deliberate slowness despite the burning pain in his right hand. He flipped it open, revealing the distinctive FBI badge and credentials that gleamed in the afternoon sunlight. "I am instructing all officers present to stand down immediately," he continued, his voice carrying the unquestionable authority of the federal government. Blake's taser remained pointed at Marcus, his indecision visible as beads of sweat formed on his forehead. "He could be faking," he suggested desperately, though the professional quality of the credentials was unmistakable. Sergeant Grant stepped forward, suddenly eager to take control of the rapidly deteriorating situation. "There seems to be a misunderstanding here," he began, his tone shifting dramatically from confrontational to conciliatory. "If you had identified yourself from the beginning," Marcus cut him off with a raised hand. "Every officer will activate their body cameras immediately," he commanded, ignoring the transparent attempt to shift blame. "Any footage already captured will be preserved as evidence in a federal investigation." He turned toward the gathered crowd. "I'm requesting civilian witnesses maintain their distance, but continue recording if they choose to do so. This is now a federal crime scene." The transformation was remarkable. The same officers who moments ago had been aggressive and dismissive now stood uncertainly, their authority superseded by federal jurisdiction. Officer Novak was the first to comply, activating her body camera with a distinct beep. The others followed reluctantly, aware that their earlier deactivation would itself become evidence. Marcus pulled out his phone with his uninjured hand, blood pressure remaining remarkably steady despite the confrontation. Years of high-stakes FBI operations had prepared him for moments like this. He dialed a number from memory, the call connecting almost immediately. "Assistant Director Freeman," he stated loud enough for all officers to hear. "This is SSA Jackson. I'm at Lakeside Park in Pinewood with my family. We've been subjected to harassment, assault, and civil rights violations by local officers. I'm invoking Code 3 protocols." The FBI's internal designation for civil rights emergency was unfamiliar to the local officers, but the gravity was unmistakable. Freeman's voice came through clearly on the speakerphone. "Understood, Marcus. Are you or your family injured?" His concern was evident even through the digital connection. "My son is experiencing a panic attack after being physically accosted by officers. I've sustained a second-degree burn when Officer Blake pushed me into a hot grill," Marcus reported with clinical precision. "I'm requesting immediate response from our field office and notification to the local police chief." Freeman's response was immediate. "Teams are being dispatched. Police Chief Morrison has been contacted and ordered to report to your location. He paused. Document everything, Marcus. This stops now. The call ended as Marcus turned his attention back to the increasingly uncomfortable officers. The dynamics had shifted completely. Those who had wielded power so carelessly minutes ago now found themselves potentially facing federal charges. The Channel 7 news crew had set up at the perimeter, their cameras capturing the dramatic revelation and its aftermath. The reporter, recognizing the significance of the story, was already delivering a live update, the FBI involvement elevating a local incident to national news. Tiana had moved to help Jamal, her doctor's training, guiding her son through breathing exercises to control his panic attack. Her phone continued recording, creating an unimpeachable record of events. Amara maintained her live stream, her composure remarkable for a 16-year-old thrust into such a volatile situation. Officer Wilson made a subtle movement toward his body camera fingers, seeking to manipulate the device. "Officer Wilson!" Marcus called out, his observation skills undiminished by the confrontation. "Tampering with evidence is a federal offense carrying a minimum 5-year sentence. Your body camera footage is now under federal protection." Wilson's hand dropped immediately, his expression darkening with the realization that his usual tactics would not work in this situation. The wail of more sirens approached, but these belonged to vehicles speeding toward rather than away from justice. An unmarked SUV with federal government plates pulled into the parking area, followed by 2 more identical vehicles. The FBI response team had arrived with remarkable speed, a testament to Assistant Director Freeman's influence and the seriousness with which the Bureau treated attacks on its agents. Simultaneously, a police vehicle with Chief's insignia parked nearby. Chief Sandra Morrison emerged, her expression a mixture of shock and horrified realization as she took in the scene. 6 police cruisers surrounding a family barbecue. Officers with weapons still not fully holstered, a federal agent with an injured hand and news cameras capturing every moment. "What the hell's going on here?" she demanded, approaching the group with quick strides. Before any of the officers could construct a favorable narrative, Marcus spoke. "Chief Morrison, I'm Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Jackson, FBI Civil Rights Division. Your officers approached my family without cause during a lawful recreational activity, escalated to threats and physical assault, and demonstrated clear racial bias in their actions. This incident is now under federal investigation." Morrison's face paled as she processed the implications. A civil rights investigation could place the entire department under federal oversight, ending careers and fundamentally restructuring operations. "All officers involved are placed on immediate administrative leave," she announced without hesitation, recognizing damage control when she saw it. "Surrender your weapons and badges to me now." The FBI team had established a perimeter, their movements efficient and practiced. An agent approached Marcus with a first aid kit, examining the burn on his hand with professional concern. "Medical team is 2 minutes out, sir," she informed him, applying a cooling gel to the injury. "Director wants full documentation of all injuries." Marcus nodded his thanks, watching as Sergeant Grant and Officers Wilson and Blake reluctantly surrendered their service weapons to Chief Morrison. Their expressions alternated between defiance and dawning horror as the consequences of their actions became increasingly apparent. Officer Novak approached Marcus cautiously, her manner distinctly different from her colleagues. "Agent Jackson," she began, her voice low, "I want you to know I tried to de-escalate. I've documented similar incidents before, but—" She glanced nervously at her colleagues. "The department has ways of burying complaints." Marcus studied her thoughtfully. "Officer Novak, I'll need your full statement. If you've witnessed systematic violations now, is the time to come forward." She nodded almost imperceptibly before rejoining the group of officers being processed by Morrison. The revelation of Marcus's identity had transformed not just the immediate situation, but potentially the entire Pinewood Police Department. What had begun as racial harassment at a family barbecue had exposed systemic issues that would now face federal scrutiny. As medical personnel arrived to treat Marcus's burn and check Jamal's condition, Marcus caught Tiana's eye across the chaotic scene. A silent communication passed between them, years of partnership condensed into a single look. This was not how they had planned to spend their Sunday, but perhaps it was how they had been destined to spend it. Sometimes justice required being in the wrong place at the right time. The once peaceful park had transformed into a hive of organized activity. FBI evidence response teams in windbreakers marked the area with yellow tape, transforming the family gazebo into a federal crime scene. Agent Tricia Washington, Marcus's colleague from the Atlanta field office, coordinated the collection of witness statements while forensic technicians photographed the grill where Marcus had been burned. "We've secured all body camera footage," Washington reported, tablet in hand, as she approached Marcus, "including metadata showing when cameras were deactivated. Tech team is also collecting footage from witnesses." Marcus nodded, wincing slightly as a paramedic applied a sterile dressing to his burned hand. "Make sure we get backup copies of everything," he instructed. "I don't trust their evidence handling protocols." Across the park, the officers involved sat in separate areas, isolated from each other to prevent coordination of stories. Chief Morrison moved between them, her expression growing more troubled with each conversation. The gravity of the situation was settling over the department like a heavy fog. Tiana sat with Jamal in the back of an ambulance, the boy's breathing now normalized, though his eyes remained wide and vigilant, tracking every police movement with newfound fear. The trauma specialist who had arrived with the FBI team spoke to him quietly, establishing rapport while evaluating his psychological state. Amara stood nearby, her live stream, now ended, but the impact continuing to spread across social media. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications as the video spread from platform to platform, views climbing into the hundreds of thousands within hours. "Your video has been picked up by national news networks," Washington informed her. "Public Affairs wants to talk to you about managing the attention." Amara nodded, her composure remarkable despite the chaos surrounding her. "I just wanted to make sure they couldn't deny what happened to us," she said, a 16-year-old who understood all too well the importance of documentation in a world that often refused to believe black victims without irrefutable evidence. A convoy of news vans had established position at the park's perimeter, reporters delivering live updates against the backdrop of FBI activity. The story had transcended local interest, tapping into the national conversation about policing and racial bias. "Viral doesn't begin to describe it," Washington commented, showing Marcus her phone screen where #Pinewood BBQ was trending nationwide. "Your family barbecue is becoming a movement." Marcus's phone rang, Assistant Director Freeman calling for an update. "How's the hand?" Freeman asked after Marcus briefed him on the investigation's progress. "Second-degree burn, nothing permanent," Marcus assured him, though the pain throbbed with his heartbeat. "Jamal's the one I'm worried about. This kind of trauma stays with kids." Freeman's voice softened with understanding. "We'll make sure he gets whatever support he needs. The Bureau takes care of its own." He paused. "The Attorney General has been briefed. This is getting attention at the highest levels." Marcus. The implications were clear. What had happened to the Jackson family would have consequences far beyond Pinewood. A black sedan with tinted windows pulled into the crowded parking area, the police officer's union representative stepping out with a briefcase and determined expression. He made directly for the isolated officers intent on providing counsel before statements were formalized. Marcus noticed immediately. "Washington, intercept the union repee. No contact with the subjects until we've secured initial statements." Washington moved with practiced efficiency, intercepting the representative with a polite but unmistakable federal barrier. "This is an active investigation site, sir. No unauthorized personnel beyond this point." The union representative bristled. These officers are entitled to representation. Marcus approached FBI credentials displayed prominently despite his injured hand. These officers are subjects in a federal civil rights investigation. They'll have full access to counsel during formal questioning, but this crime scene is currently under FBI jurisdiction. The standoff was brief, the representative retreating to make calls that would prove ultimately futile against federal authority. A group of doctors in scrubs approached the perimeter, several holding handmade signs reading, "We stand with Dr. Jackson." Tiana's colleagues from Atlanta Memorial had arrived en masse after seeing the viral video determined to show support and bear witness. An FBI agent escorted them to a designated area where they could be visible to Tiana without compromising the investigation scene. Marcus watched his wife's expression shift momentarily as she spotted her colleagues, a brief smile breaking through the tension she had maintained for hours. The physical environment of the park continued to reflect the family's interrupted celebration. The grill still smoldered chicken, now charred beyond recognition. The picnic table remained set with plates and utensils, potato salad, warming in the summer heat. Yellow evidence markers dotted the scene, transforming a family memory into court exhibits. Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming text from a journalist he had worked with on previous civil rights cases. "Story going national. Need comment from FBI." He forwarded it to the Bureau's Public Affairs Division, knowing this would be the first of many media inquiries. The gathering crowd of onlookers had grown park visitors and local residents drawn by the commotion and spreading news. Among them, Marcus spotted a familiar face. James Reynolds, a black father who had filed a complaint against the Pinewood Police Department 3 months earlier after being stopped while walking in his own neighborhood. The complaint had been dismissed for insufficient evidence. Reynolds caught Marcus's eye and nodded in grim understanding. They were not the first family targeted, but Marcus was determined they would be among the last. Jamal remained in the ambulance, the trauma specialist still by his side. "He's showing signs of acute stress response," she reported quietly to Marcus and Tiana. "He's afraid to leave the ambulance because he can still see the police officers who grabbed him." The specialist's expression was compassionate, but concerned. This could develop into PTSD without proper support. Tiana's medical training and maternal instinct aligned in her response. "He'll have whatever support he needs," she assured the specialist, though her eyes revealed the pain of knowing her child's sense of safety had been fundamentally altered. Social media continued to amplify the incident exponentially. Washington showed Marcus her tablet, where verified accounts of celebrities, civil rights leaders, and politicians had begun commenting on the video. The hashtag #WhileBBQing. While Black had joined hashtag #PinewoodBBQ in trending topics. The family's private trauma was becoming a public inflection point in the national conversation about race and policing. The Pinewood Police Department's public information officer had arrived hastily delivering a statement to the assembled media. "We are aware of an incident involving several of our officers at Lakeside Park. The department is cooperating fully with federal authorities as they investigate the matter. The officers involved have been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. We take all allegations of misconduct seriously." And the carefully crafted statement, devoid of specifics or acknowledgement of wrongdoing, would prove woefully insufficient against the unambiguous video evidence spreading across the nation. Marcus received another call, this time from State Attorney Brandon Hayes, who had finally been allowed past the police perimeter. "Marcus, I'm heading your way. Just got cleared by your people." His voice carried the controlled anger of a legal professional witnessing the system's failures firsthand. "I've already started pulling records on these officers. Wilson has 6 prior complaints of excessive force against minority citizens in the past 2 years, all dismissed. The pattern was emerging individual incidents connecting to reveal systemic issues. This was no longer about a single family's barbecue, but about an entrenched culture of discrimination and abuse. Have you or someone you know ever experienced Racial profiling? Comment number 1. If you believe police departments should face stricter oversight. Or number 2, if you think isolated incidents don't reflect systemic problems. Like this video if you're shocked by how quickly an innocent family gathering turned into a federal investigation. Subscribe to follow this story as we uncover what happened next. Did Marcus uncover a deeper conspiracy within the police department? How would this incident affect Jamal's future? The shocking pattern of police behavior in Pinewood was about to be exposed. Dawn broke over Atlanta as Marcus entered the federal building. The ache in his bandaged hand, a constant reminder of yesterday's confrontation. The Jackson family had spent the night in a hotel, their home address temporarily compromised after being leaked online by supporters of the Pinewood Police. Inside the conference room, Assistant Director Elijah Freeman had assembled a response team of agents specializing in civil rights violations. "We've established a dedicated task force," Freeman announced as Marcus took his seat. "This incident has opened a door we need to walk through." On the digital display, photographs of Officers Wilson Blake, Sergeant Grant, and Officer Novak appeared alongside their service records. "Internal Affairs from Pinewood PD reached out this morning," Freeman continued. "They're offering a quick resolution, 2-week suspensions for Wilson and Blake, written reprimand for Grant." His expression made clear what he thought of the offer. "They're hoping to contain the damage before we dig deeper." Marcus shook his head, scrolling through documents on his tablet despite the discomfort in his injured hand. "Not happening. The department needs to understand this isn't going away with administrative slaps on the wrist." Agent Washington entered carrying a folder marked confidential. "We've completed initial analysis of police incident reports from Lakeside Park over the past 2 years. She reported distributing digital copies to the team. There's a pattern, 9 separate complaints from black families using the park facilities. All dismissed for insufficient evidence despite witness statements." She highlighted a section of the report. 3 of those incidents involved Officer Wilson and Sergeant Grant specifically. The pattern was unmistakable, transforming an isolated incident into evidence of systematic discrimination. Marcus was simultaneously vindicated and disturbed. His family's trauma was not unique, but part of an established practice. As the meeting concluded, Marcus received an alert on his secure phone. An unauthorized access attempt had been made to Tiana's medical records at Atlanta Memorial Hospital. "Someone in the department is fishing for dirt," Freeman observed as Marcus showed him the notification. "Looking for anything they can use to discredit her testimony." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Cyber team needs to trace that access attempt. That's witness intimidation and potentially HIPAA violations." The escalation was concerning but not surprising. Systems of power protected themselves reflexively, circling wagons around threatened members. Marcus had seen it countless times in his professional capacity. Now he was experiencing it personally. Back at the hotel suite serving as their temporary residence, Tiana prepared for a video conference with the hospital administration. Her colleagues had rallied around her, but institutional politics remained complex. "The chief of surgery called," she informed Marcus as he entered. "Some board members are concerned about the hospital being dragged into a political situation." Her expression was carefully neutral, though Marcus could read the hurt beneath it. 15 years of exemplary service, and suddenly I'm a potential liability. Jamal remained in the bedroom, blinds drawn, despite the late morning hour. The trauma specialist had visited earlier, confirming signs of acute stress response that could develop into PTSD if not addressed promptly. The 12-year-old, who had bounced with excitement over basketball just days ago, now flinched at sudden movements and refused to leave the hotel room. Amara sat at the dining table researching trauma responses in adolescence on her laptop. Her scientific mind approached the family crisis with methodical determination to understand and help. Her own processing of the event channeled into action rather than emotion, though Marcus noted the dark circles under her eyes, suggesting sleep had been elusive. Marcus's secure phone rang Freeman's number appearing on the display. "We've got pushbacks, the assistant director reported without preamble. Senator Harrington called the director directly, suggesting we're overreacting to an unfortunate misunderstanding and damaging community relations with law enforcement. The political dimension was emerging powerful figures moving to protect the status quo. "The senator serves on our appropriations committee," Freeman added unnecessarily. Marcus understood the implication. Budget considerations could influence Bureau decisions even in matters of justice. "The evidence speaks for itself," Marcus responded, conscious of choosing his words carefully on a recorded line. "The video has 20 million views as of this morning. Public opinion is clear." What remained unspoken was the understanding that without that video evidence, without Marcus's FBI credentials, the incident would likely have been dismissed like the 9 previous complaints. The systems of power required irrefutable evidence before acknowledging their failures, and even then resistance remained fierce. A notification appeared on Marcus's tablet, an internal FBI message marked urgent. He opened it to find a job posting for a deputy assistant director position in Washington, D.C. Criminal Enterprise Division. The timing was suspect, the position several grades above his current role. "They're offering you a promotion to go away," Tiana observed, reading over his shoulder. Her perception was as sharp as ever. Prestigious enough to seem like a reward rather than a removal. Marcus nodded, the strategy transparent to them both. Elevate him to a position with prestige, but no direct involvement in civil rights investigations, particularly in the Atlanta region. Problem solved without the messiness of direct confrontation. A soft removal wrapped in career advancement. The hotel room phone rang the front desk, informing them that Officer Patricia Novak was requesting to speak with Marcus. After security verification, Marcus agreed to meet her in the hotel's secure conference room arranged by the FBI protection detail. Novak arrived in civilian clothes, visibly nervous as she took a seat across from Marcus. "I've been placed on administrative leave along with the others," she began. Hands clasped tightly on the table. "But I'm not here to defend what happened." She took a deep breath. "There's a pattern in the department. Certain officers target what they call demographic anomalies in affluent neighborhoods." The euphemism was clear: black families in white spaces. "It's not official policy, at least nothing written down," she continued, "but the expectations are communicated clearly during roll call, especially in areas like Pinewood." She described how complaints were systematically undermined, body camera footage mysteriously corrupted, and officers who objected found themselves assigned to undesirable shifts or dangerous areas. "I've documented everything I could," she said, sliding a flash drive across the table. "It's not just Lakeside Park. It's happening across our jurisdiction." Marcus studied her carefully, evaluating her credibility and motivations. Why come forward now? It was the essential question. Novak's expression reflected complex emotions: shame, resolve, fear. "Because seeing your son's face when Grant grabbed him." She paused, composing herself. "I became a police officer to protect people. What we did to your family wasn't protection. It was intimidation, and I can't be part of that system anymore." Marcus understood the courage required for her decision. Police culture demanded absolute loyalty. Whistleblowers faced isolation at best, danger at worst. "We'll need your formal testimony," he informed her, "and this will become public." Novak nodded, resolution replacing uncertainty. "I know. It's time." As she left, Marcus contemplated the flash drive in his hand. It potentially contained evidence that could expand the investigation beyond his family's incident to a departmental pattern of civil rights violations. The systems of power had cracks, and sometimes conscience found its way through those fissures. Later that evening, as the family ate dinner in strained silence, Marcus's tablet displayed breaking news. Officer Reed Wilson had been arrested for assaulting a bartender in a dispute unrelated to the park incident. The development created an unexpected opportunity. Facing criminal charges and departmental abandonment, Wilson might become willing to provide testimony about systemic practices within Pinewood PD. The complex chess game of investigation and accountability continued to evolve, pieces moving across the board in sometimes unexpected ways. Marcus exchanged a meaningful look with Tiana across the table. The systems of power were substantial with deep roots and high protections, but they were not impervious to pressure, not immune to exposure. What had begun as a family barbecue, interrupted by prejudice, had expanded into a potential landmark case that could reshape policing practices in their community. The cost was high paid in trauma and disruption. But as Marcus watched his family navigating the aftermath with dignity and resilience, he recognized that sometimes justice required personal sacrifice. The systems of power counted on victims choosing comfort over confrontation. The Jackson family had made a different choice. Marcus stared at the screen in disbelief, reading the unauthorized leak of his personnel file published on a right-wing news site. The article painted him as an FBI agent with a political agenda, who had deliberately provoked officers to create a racial incident. His service record had been selectively edited, security clearance information compromised, and portions of his performance reviews taken out of context. The counteroffensive had begun in earnest. "They're attempting to control the narrative," Assistant Director Freeman observed, scrolling through the article on his own device during their secure video call. Classic discrediting technique. Make the victim the villain. Marcus closed the browser window jaw, tight with controlled anger. "My family's receiving death threats, Elijah. Tiana found a note on her car at the hospital yesterday. Amara's being harassed at school. This has gone beyond professional pushback." Freeman's expression darkened. "We've approved round-the-clock protection for all of you, and the cyber team is tracking the source of the leak. Whoever accessed your personnel file committed a federal offense. The protection was necessary, but represented another disruption to their lives, another reminder that standing for justice carried escalating personal costs." 3 black SUVs now accompanied the family to all destinations, FBI agents maintaining constant vigilance. Jamal had initially been terrified by the armed personnel until Agent Washington had patiently explained they were there to protect, not threaten. The 12-year-old now referred to them as his security detail, a linguistic reframing that helped him process their presence. Marcus ended the call and moved to the hotel suite's living area where State Attorney Brandon Hayes was reviewing evidence with Tiana. The dining table had been transformed into a command center of legal documents, medical reports, and witness statements. "The department is filing a motion to have you removed from the investigation," Hayes informed Marcus without preamble. "They're citing conflict of interest, since you're both investigator and victim." It was a predictable move, legally dubious but effective in creating procedural delays. "My team is preparing a counter-motion, Hayes continued, "but your superiors need to hold firm." The implicit question hung in the air: would the Bureau support Marcus fully or seek a less confrontational resolution? A news alert appeared simultaneously on their devices. Footage of a protest outside Pinewood Police Headquarters had turned violent after uniformed officers deployed tear gas against peaceful demonstrators. The live video showed chaos erupting as protesters scattered, some being roughly detained. "This wasn't spontaneous," Marcus observed, noting tactical positioning that suggested preparation rather than reaction. "They're manufacturing a crisis to justify aggressive response." Hayes nodded grimly. "Creating a narrative about dangerous protesters to distract from police misconduct." Classic playbook. Tiana's phone rang, the hospital administrator's number appearing on screen. She answered, listening intently, before her expression shifted to one of suspicious disbelief. "I see. And this offer comes with conditions, I assume." After another moment, she ended the call, turning to Marcus with grim confirmation. "I've been offered the chief of pediatric surgery position at Boston Memorial. Effective immediately, with relocation assistance and a 30% salary increase." The timing was too convenient to be coincidence. "They want us gone," Marcus concluded. "Remove the family from Atlanta story, loses its local impact. Case gradually fades from public attention." It was a sophisticated approach to silence them through opportunity rather than threat carrots instead of sticks. Amara entered from her bedroom, tablet in hand. "My science project was disqualified from the state competition," she announced, her voice steady, though her eyes betrayed hurt. "Apparently there are suddenly concerns about methodology that weren't issues during preliminary judging." Another front in the pressure campaign targeting their 16-year-old daughter's academic achievements. The message was becoming increasingly clear: every aspect of their lives could be disrupted until they backed down. Marcus's secure phone buzzed with an incoming message. "Internal Review Board meeting tomorrow at 9, he read aloud. "They're questioning my handling of the case." The timing was strategic, creating maximum administrative pressure while public attention remained focused on the protests. Hayes checked his watch and stood to leave. "I need to get to the courthouse." Officer Wilson's attorney reached out. He may be willing to provide testimony about departmental practices in exchange for leniency on his assault charge. The development offered a potential breakthrough, though making deals with an officer who had harassed his family created complex ethical considerations for Marcus. "Get whatever you can," he instructed Hayes. "This is bigger than what happened to us now." After Hayes departed, Marcus received another alert. Newly released body camera footage from Officer Novak showed Sergeant Grant instructing officers before their shift to pay special attention to demographic anomalies in Pinewood neighborhoods and make them feel unwelcome. The explicit direction contradicted official department statements that the park incident had been an isolated misjudgment by individual officers. The evidence of systematic discrimination was becoming increasingly difficult to dismiss. Marcus forwarded the footage to Freeman with a brief message: "This is why they want me off the case. We're getting close to the command structure." And the assistant director's response came minutes later: "Deputy Director wants to see you in Washington tomorrow. Bring everything you have." The summons could represent either support or the prelude to his removal from the investigation. The institutional response remained ambiguous, caught between justice and political expedience. That evening, as the family ate another meal in their temporary hotel residence, Marcus noticed Jamal pushing food around his plate without eating. "Not hungry, champ?" he asked gently. The boy shrugged, eyes downcast. "When can we go home?" The simple question carried the weight of all they'd been enduring. Home represented normalcy, safety, the life they'd had before officers had targeted them for existing while black in a white space. "Soon," Marcus promised, though uncertainty shadowed his response. "We're making progress." Jamal looked up, his expression suddenly intense. "Those officers hurt us because we're black. They're not going to get in trouble, are they?" "They never do." The 12-year-old's assessment cut to the heart of the matter with uncomfortable clarity. Marcus felt the weight of his son's growing cynicism, the premature loss of innocence that represented perhaps the greatest injury inflicted that day in the park. "This time is different, Marcus assured him. "We have evidence, we have witnesses, and we're not backing down." He believed the words as he spoke them, yet understood the systems arrayed against them remained powerful and deeply entrenched. The real breaking point wasn't the threats or the professional pressure or even the personal attacks. It was seeing his children's view of America being reshaped by bigotry, cloaked in authority, watching Jamal's trust in institutions crumbling, observing Amara's idealism hardening into wary pragmatism. The true cost couldn't be measured in career implications or security concerns, but in the theft of childhood certainty that the world was fundamentally just. Marcus's phone rang, displaying an unknown number. He answered cautiously, security protocols engaged. "Agent Jackson?" The voice on the other end belonged to Captain Richard Henley, commander of the Pinewood Police Department's Patrol Division and direct supervisor to Sergeant Grant. "We need to talk, not officially." The request was irregular, potentially a trap, certainly a risk. "I have information about who ordered the demographic enforcement policy, and why." Henley's voice carried the tension of someone crossing a significant line. "There's a connection between the department leadership and Pinewood Heights Development Corporation. They're gentrifying neighborhoods and using police to pressure certain residents to sell." The allegation expanded the case beyond racial profiling into potential corruption and conspiracy. "I'll need evidence, not just allegations." Marcus responded, professional training overriding personal involvement. "I can get you what you need," Henley promised, "but I want immunity. This goes higher than you think." After ending the call, Marcus sat in momentary silence, processing the implications. The breaking point had shifted from personal to structural, the case expanding beyond his family's experience to encompass systemic corruption. What had begun as harassment at a barbecue was revealing layer upon layer of institutional misconduct. His secure phone buzzed again, this time with a message from FBI headquarters. "Deputy Director suggests you consider accepting Washington position. Case can be handled by another agent." The subtle pressure was clear. His superiors were offering him an exit ramp, a way to advance his career while allowing the Bureau to pursue a less confrontational approach to the investigation. The choice before him had crystallized: accept personal advancement and institutional compromise, or risk his career by pushing forward despite increasing pressure. Marcus looked at his family gathered around the table, Tiana's quiet strength, Amara's determined intelligence, Jamal's fragile recovery, and knew there was only one choice he could live with. Tomorrow's meeting in Washington would be a reckoning, not a retreat. The breaking point had been reached, but not in the way the systems of power had intended. Instead of breaking the Jackson family's resolve, they had only strengthened their determination to see justice fully realized, whatever the cost. 1 year later, Marcus stood at the same grill in the same gazebo at Lakeside Park Spatula, turning chicken pieces with practiced ease. The burn scars on his right hand had faded to faint pink lines, physical reminders of a day that had changed not just his family, but an entire community. The park around them buzzed with activity, families of all backgrounds enjoying the summer sunshine. A banner stretched across the entrance: "First Annual Community Unity Barbecue." Tiana approached, carrying a tray of fresh vegetables. "The hospital board members just arrived," she informed him with a smile that carried the satisfaction of vindication. "Amazing how supportive they've become since the consent decree." Her position as chief of surgery at Atlanta Memorial had been confirmed permanently after the department's attempted intimidation tactics were exposed during grand jury testimony. The same board members who had once worried about political complications now proudly highlighted their association with her in hospital publications. Marcus nodded toward a group setting up tables nearby. "Officer Novak's community outreach team is here too." Patricia Novak, now promoted to lieutenant, led the newly established Community Relations Division of the restructured Pinewood Police Department. Her testimony had been instrumental in the case, her courage in breaking the blue wall of silence, earning her both professional advancement and social ostracism from former colleagues. The path had not been easy for any of them. Marcus recalled the pivotal grand jury testimony he had delivered despite explicit warnings from certain Bureau executives that his career advancement depended on his team player attitude. For 6 hours, he had methodically presented evidence of systematic civil rights violations, discriminatory policies, and the corruption connection between department leadership and property developers. His testimony, combined with Officer Wilson's plea deal information and Captain Henley's evidence, had resulted in indictments against not only the officers involved in the park incident, but 8 command staff members, including the former police chief. The federal consent decree that followed placed the entire Pinewood Police Department under court supervision for a minimum of 5 years, requiring comprehensive retraining, community oversight, and transparent accountability measures. Marcus had declined the offered promotion to Washington, instead establishing a specialized civil rights task force within the Atlanta field office. The initiative, initially viewed with skepticism by some bureau leadership, had quickly proven its value by addressing similar patterns of misconduct in 3 neighboring jurisdictions. Amara approached the grill clipboard in hand with the organization of someone twice her age. The mayor's office called. He'll be 15 minutes late, but confirmed he's still speaking. At 17, she had channeled her experience into focused activism, establishing a youth advocacy group that documented interactions between police and minorities. Her college applications now included her intention to pursue law, her personal statement directly referencing how the park incident had shaped her understanding of justice systems. Jamal moved through the gathering with growing confidence, his basketball under one arm, as he greeted community members. His recovery had been gradual, the trauma specialist working with him weekly for months. The breakthrough had come when Marcus enrolled him in a youth program led by reformed officers committed to rebuilding community trust. Seeing police in a supportive rather than threatening role had slowly restored his sense of security, though a new wariness remained in his eyes that hadn't existed before the incident. The family's civil lawsuit against the Pinewood Police Department had been settled for a substantial but undisclosed amount. The funds had been used to establish the Jackson Family Foundation, supporting victims of racial profiling and police misconduct. The first grant had provided therapy services for children traumatized by police encounters, addressing a need Marcus had identified through Jamal's experience. Marcus scanned the growing crowd, noting with satisfaction the diversity of attendees. Community members from all backgrounds had come together, the shared barbecue, representing a small but meaningful step toward healing divisions the previous police administration had deliberately exploited. A television news crew set up nearby, preparing to cover the event. The reporter caught Marcus's eye and nodded respectfully. The media attention had been intense throughout the case, at times intrusive, but ultimately essential in maintaining public pressure for meaningful reform. Officer Blake watched the Channel 7 news coverage from the visitors area of Fulton County Correctional Facility, his expression unreadable as the camera panned across the community celebration. His conviction for civil rights violations, assault, and evidence tampering had resulted in a 4-year sentence. His attempts to portray himself as just following orders, undermined by body camera evidence of his explicit racial animus. Sergeant Grant had received probation after cooperating with prosecutors. His law enforcement career permanently ended, but his freedom preserved through strategic testimony against higher-ranking officials. Officer Wilson's plea deal had resulted in community service rather than incarceration, his cooperation providing crucial evidence about the department's systematic targeting of minority residents in affluent neighborhoods. Back at the park, Lieutenant Novak approached Marcus with a group of new police academy graduates. "Agent Jackson has agreed to share his perspective with you," she informed them, her mentorship role evident in the respectful attention the recruits displayed. "His experience represents both a failure of our previous system and a blueprint for our new approach." Marcus set down his spatula, taking a moment to gather his thoughts before addressing the young officers. "1 year ago, my family was targeted for harassment in this very spot." He began, his voice carrying across the now quiet group. What happened that day revealed not just individual prejudice, but systematic failure. The officers involved didn't recognize their actions as wrong because the culture around them normalized discrimination. He gestured toward the diverse gathering. "Your job isn't just enforcement, but protection of rights of dignity, of equal treatment under law. The badge you'll wear represents authority, but that authority is meaningless without the trust of the community you serve." The recruits listened intently, their expressions suggesting the message was being received. These were the first graduates of the Reformed Academy, their training now including extensive civil rights education and community engagement requirements mandated by the consent decree. As Marcus concluded his impromptu lecture, Tiana joined him, slipping her hand into his. "Not bad for a guy who just wanted a quiet family barbecue," she teased gently, though pride shone in her eyes. Marcus smiled, squeezing her hand in return. "Sometimes justice finds you when you're just trying to grill some chicken." The community gathering continued around them, a tangible representation of progress emerging from confrontation. What one family had endured had catalyzed change benefiting many, their private pain transformed into public accountability. As evening approached, the Jackson family gathered once more around the same table where they had attempted to enjoy a meal 1 year earlier. This time, no officers interrupted with baseless accusations. No weapons were drawn. No child was traumatized. Instead, they were surrounded by community members sharing food stories and a renewed commitment to ensuring such incidents would not be repeated. Marcus looked across at Jamal, noticing with profound relief that his son's smile had returned not quite as carefree as before, but genuine nonetheless. Amara engaged in animated conversation with the mayor's chief of staff about police oversight legislation. Tiana chatted with hospital colleagues who had stood by her throughout the ordeal. The scene represented healing incomplete, ongoing, but real. As darkness fell, lanterns illuminated the gathering, their light reflecting off the lake water. Marcus raised his glass in a toast heard by those nearby. "To justice served," he said simply. The response came from many voices in unison. "To justice served." Have you witnessed positive changes in police-community relations in your area? What more do you think needs to be done to ensure equal treatment under the law? Comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if it moved you. Your engagement helps spread awareness about these important issues. Thank you for joining us on this journey from injustice to accountability. Remember, change begins with standing firm when it would be easier to back down. Until next time, may justice be served in your community too. This story highlights how systems of power often work to maintain existing hierarchies even when confronted with clear evidence of wrongdoing. The Jackson family's experience reveals that racial discrimination doesn't always manifest as obvious hatred, but through procedures, protocols, and misunderstandings that disproportionately target people of color. When Marcus revealed his FBI credentials, the officer's immediate change in behavior demonstrated how respect was contingent on perceived power rather than inherent humanity. The most important lesson is that documentation and persistence are crucial in fighting systemic injustice. Amara's live stream, Tiana's recording, and Marcus's professional knowledge all contributed to ensuring accountability that might otherwise have been denied. We also see how institutions protect themselves through intimidation, character assassination, and offering promotions as distractions. True change requires both individual courage and collective action. Officer Novak's testimony, community protests, and media attention all played vital roles alongside the Jackson family's refusal to back down. Finally, the story teaches us that justice, while difficult to achieve, is possible through strategic persistence and documentation. The transformation of the Pinewood Police Department shows that systemic change, though challenging, can be achieved when people refuse to accept the status quo and instead demand that America's promise of equal justice under law be fulfilled for everyone. What situations in your own community mirror the injustice faced by the Jackson family? Has racial profiling touched your life or the lives of those you care about? Share your experiences in the comments below, as your story matters in this ongoing conversation about equality and justice. If this narrative resonated with you, please hit that like button to help amplify these crucial discussions about systemic racism and accountability. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories that expose injustice and celebrate those brave enough to stand against it. By sharing this video with friends and family, you help spread awareness about the reality many Americans face daily and contribute to the push for meaningful reform. Thank you for bearing witness to this story. Remember that change begins with awareness, continues with documentation, and succeeds through persistence. Together we can build communities where a family barbecue remains just that, regardless of skin color.